Hello and welcome to the YBMB live show, Your Body Means Business. As you know, we run this live 3 days a week, Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. Monday we talk about body, Wednesdays we talk about mindset, and Fridays we talk about business. And sometimes I have guests. I have a great guest lined up for you on Friday actually to talk about something to do with business. I'll save that for later. And sometimes there's a particular point that I want to address, and today's one of those days. So you've just got me talking about whose fault is it. And I actually sent out a daily email about that this morning. So if you're not subscribing already to my daily emails, in those I give all sorts of hints and tips on body, mind and business every day. So if you want those, then subscribe. I think a link's down the bottom or it will come up. But just getting back to the point today, whose fault is it? The reason that's occurred to me is that I do hear a lot of, people complaining and whinging. And I don't want to sound unsympathetic because it's been tough over the last year especially. But prior to that, the previous recession was tough as well. And what you see is in all economies, great sort of peaks and terrible troughs, you find people that really do thrive, and you also find people that just, don't do well at all. And like I say, that's regardless of the economy. And what I've learned is that so much of that is mindset. And it's very easy to hear that, but how do you change your mindset when things are tough? And so I wanted to talk today about how to sort of come away from the blame game, how to, it doesn't matter whose fault something is. It doesn't matter if it's your own fault. It doesn't matter if you've been held back, if colleagues have let you down, if the economy's gone bad, if you've been sacked, if you lost your job, if your business has gone bust. I mean, really, it doesn't actually matter whose fault it is, does it? What matters is what you do now and what you do in the future. So when I talk to people on a one-to-one basis, and that's what always happens when they sign up for YBMB, I like to have a one-to-one to really get to know people's backgrounds and what's holding them back. And sometimes they know and sometimes they don't. And I like to listen to their story, and you can generally see the sort of degree to which they are blaming what's going on around them. Sometimes they blame themselves as well, but talking about maybe their body's got out of hand, they've never been able to lose weight, and the reason is because of their job, because they've got children, because they have to cook for the family, because of money, etc., etc. But the first point I suppose I wanted to make is it really doesn't matter if your body is not as you want it to be, if your business is not where you want it to be, if you currently don't have a career. This might sound harsh, but it doesn't really matter, does it? There's no point in dwelling on whose fault that is and why you've got to the point you've got to, because we can all sort of sit there and dwell on it's not my fault, it's someone else's or something else's. But if we do that, it's not going to move us forward. And so what I wanted to give to you today were some tips on when to see that happening, and secondly, how to address it and how to sort of jump onto the sorry, it's my little doggy snorting there, to jump on the a roadmap really to start taking some action. And so the first one I think is to really accept responsibility. And Tony Robbins talks about blame, and he talks about blame elegantly, which is quite interesting. Sometimes people maybe blame their parents, for example, or they blame another half, or like I said, colleagues. But what he always says is if you're going to blame someone for something, blame them for everything. For example, if you think that, you didn't have a good childhood, for example, and maybe you're not confident because of your childhood, what you could also do is to look at all the things that have come out of that, how much more resourceful that's made you, how much more independent that might have made you. And so he talks about blaming elegantly. If you have a particular situation, a particular person that you think has not done right by you, actually look at, as a result of their actions, the positives that have come out of it, and how you've become stronger as a result. So that's one of the a really good take-home tip, I think. But anyway, regardless, accepting responsibility for being where you are one way or another is a really cathartic experience, because now you are where you are, you've put the past behind you, and you can start to move forward. So how do you move forward? Well, I think one of the next steps is to understand behavior and understand, your own behavior so that you can reposition yourself to look at things maybe slightly differently going forward. And this doesn't happen overnight, but having an awareness of why you do the things you do, why you believe the things you believe can really, really help. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to tell you. The first is the fact that, you may think that you are an independent thinker and your brain works for you. But as I think I've said before, our brain often doesn't work for us in the ways we want it to. And there's this thing called the 6 human needs, and we are all driven to fulfill some basic human needs. But the problem is that we sometimes try to fulfill them in ways that are not necessarily positive for us and our future goals. So these needs include certainty, which is, a need for security and to be certain about, what's going on around you and feeling some sort of form of control. The next one, though, bizarrely, is uncertainty. And that is the need for variety and excitement. And it's often because we also have a need for uncertainty that we fall out of our routine, for example. And then the third one is significance and a desire to feel special and noticed. And people may say, no, I don't want to be noticed, but we all want significance in some way. We may want, some people achieve significance through, being the hardest worker or being a people pleaser, whatever it is. So significance can be achieved in different ways. And then the fourth one is love and connection, the need to really feel a connection and closeness with somebody. And that can be great if we're fulfilling that in a way that makes us a great parent, a great sibling, a great colleague, supportive colleague. But it can be really quite negative if it makes us into a real people pleaser and we never please ourselves. And then the final two needs are growth and contribution, a desire to grow and learn and progress, and a need for contribution to make an impact around the world. Unfortunately, many of us can never get to fifth and sixth needs, progression and contribution, because we're constantly trying somehow to fulfill these top four. And we do fulfill this top four one way or another. But like I say, sometimes not in very solid ways. So for example, if we take certainty, and I'll only give you this one example, there are many others that I explain in detail in the programme. You could find that you are trying to achieve certainty by having a really rigid routine, exercising, eating in a consistent fashion, so you feel strong and healthy, and paying all your bills and having work slots and a great schedule and a productive schedule and all of that. So that's a fantastic way to achieve certainty. Or it could be that, instead of doing that, it's chaotic all day, and then you feel very annoyed with yourself because you've not been as productive as you wanted. And then you flop down on the sofa at the end of the day and you have a glass of wine and watch Netflix because you know for sure that is going to give you certainty. And the certainty there is that you're going to relax. And so, you can see that both things would achieve certainty there, but one is much more long-term positive for you. So understanding your behavior and why you do the things you do are really, really important, and a first step of moving away from the blame game and moving forward. And then the other thing that I just wanted to mention was this concept of having an upper limit problem. There's a book by a guy called Gay Hendricks, and it's called The Big Leap. And I'd really recommend you read it if you haven't already, if you feel that you have this upper limit problem. And what it is that we do self-sabotage. This comes from deep within our childhood and our history, where maybe we've heard one way or another that we're not good enough for something, or we're never going to be able to achieve something, and we internalize that and we really believe it, even though we don't consciously think it. And then basically, if we get beyond that, this little sort of thermostat kicks in and keeps us from getting where maybe we could do, either with our body or our mind or our business. You might look back over your own history and think, just when everything was going great, I self-sabotage somehow. And that's really commonly known as a sort of an upper limit problem. So understanding those two things doesn't mean to say that you can conquer them immediately. But like I always say, what gets measured gets done. And once you know that about yourself, once you're more aware of it, let's say, then you can catch yourself doing it and prevent it. And prevent it from holding you back, I should say. So taking that knowledge into account, how do you then move forward? So you've decided that regardless of whose fault it is that where you are now, regardless of the fact it's no one's fault that there's a pandemic, it might be, but there's no point in analysing it, is there? We may as well just sort of take where we are now and how do we move forward. So very often we want to move forward, but we're not, we haven't really sat down and created a vision. So if you haven't done that, it's not just a list of things you want. This is creating a vision of how you would love your life to be. And you take a time frame that's comfortable for you. So maybe it might be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but imagine and enjoy imagining how you could make your life. Forget for a minute whether it's possible and just imagine how you would like it to be. And that will involve, how you look, how you feel, who you're with, where you live, what car you drive, what job you do, where you go on holiday, who you spend your time with, like I said, and a multitude of other things, who you're impacting in your life, who you liaise with on a day-to-day basis, what's said about you. And I'm sure, we've all got this vision of our future self. And so firstly, the thing to do is just to sort of sit and think about that, how great it would be. And you'll have this little voice saying, oh, no, but you can't because of this, or you can't because of that, or that's not going to happen because of this, or that's never going to happen. You have to try and eradicate those feelings and those thoughts and create this vision. And as you're creating it, you write it down. No one else needs to see it, but you create this vision. And then once you've done that, the next step is to prioritize, because by now, if you've become quite prolific and you're writing it all up, you may then decide, okay, well, let me prioritize these things. Of all of this, what's the first thing that I would really love? I mean, I would recommend that if you're seeing yourself looking, a fitter version of yourself, then that would be your priority, because, as you know, that I firmly believe now, and that's really the underpinning of Your Body Means Business, that in order to achieve anything, the machine that we are has to be working at optimal levels. And so, you've got to prioritize then. So you could well prioritize, okay, well, in my future life, I'm driving a Ferrari, let's say, and you might want to prioritize that. But, what's the person looking like who's driving the Ferrari? How strong are they? How fit are they? How healthy are they? So think about the prioritization and list about 4 or 5 of the things that you see. It could be the house you're living in, the business you're owning, or the job that you have, or the friends that you have, or the partner you have, or the car you're driving, or just even, like I said, how you look, the clothes you're wearing, what your hair's like. Go in as much detail as you can, but do prioritize it and take probably about the first 5 things. So now you've got a bit of a clearer list of goals, and they mean something because they're all contributing to this overall vision. Very often, if people write down, just a random list of things, I would like this, that, and the other, they don't really mean anything because they're not part of a bigger picture. But if you've seen this vision of your future life, then prioritizing, the top sort of 4 or 5 things really, really help you because they're part of the bigger picture, so they make sense. Once you've done that, have another look at these top priorities and be very specific. So say, for example, your top one on your list is, well, I look a lot fitter. I look a lot stronger. What does that actually mean? Be specific now. So if it means that you've lost weight, how much do you weigh in that vision? If it means that, you can lift certain weights, or you have muscles in certain places, or you're wearing certain outfits, be very specific. So what are your measurements? What's your dress size or your suit size? And, what are you wearing and how are you looking? Where are you standing? So be very, very specific. I want to be this way, etc. And then put some timelines around it. Be very specific about the dates. Now, again, you've probably heard this said a lot as well. People do, they overestimate what they can achieve in a year, but they underestimate vastly what they can achieve in a decade. So I'm not saying be, too circumspect, but it's pointless actually saying, that you want to be losing 2 stone in a month if you've been this way for years and years and years and years, because you just make your life too difficult for yourself. So give yourself a bit longer, give yourself a slightly bigger, the time's going to pass anyway, and do it in a more enjoyable fashion. If you want to start a new business, then by all means, put 7 or 8 figures as a turnover, but, take into account the fact that this is a very new economy and you have unicorn businesses who do reach, billion-dollar turnovers. But usually speaking, it takes time. It takes probably about 7 years for a business to really find its feet and to start to be earning that type of money. Because the majority of businesses, they do close through lack of planning in the first year. and even more so in the first couple of years. But so prioritize these things and be specific. Be specific with the measurements. Be specific with the timeframes. And now you've got some really great goals. So let's say you look a certain way, and that means that you weigh X amount, you lift certain weights, you fit into a certain size outfit, your hair is this color, all of these things that are aesthetics really. Let's say it's about a business, you're running a new business, a brand new business, it's in a particular sector, you're turning over X amount, you have 10 people working for you, you all work from home, or you have an office, or whatever it is. Your clients are from this area of life, and you've got this many clients. So be as specific as you can. And then the other things, the things like the house. Where is it? How much did you pay for it? How long have you lived there? What's the mortgage on it? Etc. etc. So you try and bring this as specific as possible. You always sort of, when you're writing it down, you're writing it as if it's almost happened. So now you've got these very, very specific pointers. And isn't this more interesting and exciting to do than to be sitting there on the sofa dwelling on whose fault it was that got you to where you are at the moment? It's such a much more positive thing to do for you and your mindset and your happiness, because you feel happy as a result of doing this stuff. And then all you've really got to do with the next one is to say, okay, right, I want to, let's take the body, and let's take the house, and let's take the job. Firstly, the body. I've defined what it is I want to do. All you've got to do then is identify the next step, the first next step. So with the body, it may be that I weigh a certain amount now. I've lost this much weight, and I now train in the gym. So what's the first step? Okay, well, you need to get, let's say, a nutrition plan, or you need to hire a coach, or you need to get on a program, like YBMB. So whatever it is, take that next step. Or you need to learn about it yourself on Google, subscribe to my daily emails. Whatever it is, there's just one next step there. So it's not rocket science, just one next step. So identify that. With the career, let's say, for example, that you want to go into a completely different field. Let's say that you want to go into, property. There may be qualifications that you need to do, or training that you need to do. Let's just take, eyebrows. I know somebody who's just starting a new business in eyebrow definition, doing people's microblading. So the first thing that she's got to do is to find a microblading course. So that's her first thing. So that, just again, the first action. Don't worry about all the things that you have to do, because just take the first step and start doing the first thing. I promise you what happens is you start to get momentum. And let's take the third thing, that you live in a certain area, in a certain property. And what I say to you is, you don't need to buy this property. You might be renting. You might be able to rent it. But, what's the next step? Well, the next step is to start looking at these properties specifically. Where are they? Have a look at estate agents. Go on Rightmove and Zoopla online. Start looking at the properties. Think about exactly where you'd love to live. Look at somewhere that you would really... an area, and start having a look, looking at rental properties, looking at purchase properties, and finding out how much would be necessary for you to save up to be able to achieve something like that. Remember that 5% mortgages are coming along. There's going to be help to buy from the government. There's stamp duty gone. So if you want to go the buying route, now's the time maybe to have a look at that. And for rentals, there's some really good deals in rental at the moment. So you may find something where the landlord has had to put the rent down, and you might find something. So again, you've got to take the next step to achieve these goals. And so now what you've got, instead of dwelling on whose fault it was, you've got a really clear vision. You've got some priorities. You've been very specific about these priorities. So you have some measures. And again, what gets measured gets done. And you've now got your next steps. And so what's the next thing? The next thing is to actually take those steps, isn't it? And this can be a real sticking point, because now you know what it is you've got to do, but still sometimes we get held back. Still sometimes we might take a little step forward, but then we get held back. And what it is that upper limit problem, again, the one I spoke to at the beginning. And one of the things that causes that is the amygdala in our brain. This little thing at the back, which is in a part of our primitive brain, which is there to look after us. And what it used to be there for, when we were a primitive creature, was to make sure that we weren't eaten by lions and tigers. Now they're luckily not around for us anymore. And instead, therefore, whenever we feel fear, this amygdala holds us back. It makes us not take what it perceives to be fearful, dangerous steps. And in this current day and age, the steps that I've just mentioned might be the fearful steps, starting to train, even starting to document, massive goals might be a step that's too fearful. So how do you overcome that? What you do is you have to start thinking about like-minded people, getting yourself in a peer group of people that want to achieve better things for themselves as well. You want an accountability group. And what you also need is some form of mentor. And I know this myself because every time I've managed to sort of make a step change and move forward, it's never been purely on my own. It's always been with the help of role models and with experts and people that can tell me what it is that I have to do, and then people that will mentor me and keep me accountable. And they could be in all different shapes and sizes. And it can either be people that are speaking online, or it could be real life coaches, or indeed it could be programs like this program here. And I'm just going to finish up on that to let you know that I've been on a multitude of different programs over the years. They have been face-to-face programs where I've gone out and gone to conferences and I've met people, and I've always sat at the front, and I'm an assiduous note taker, and I will always ask questions, and I will try to get the most out of it. So I've been to real life conferences. I've been all around the world on programs where I've really become immersed in subjects and got to know the other people, the like-minded people that have attended and joined Facebook groups, etc., and really found those have been very useful. I have studied, especially recently in the last year, a lot of virtual content and participated in virtual meetings, Zoom meetings with experts on all sorts of areas, and found those to be useful as well. I've done self-study. I've qualified in things myself. The Future Life Progression is one. A qualified PT is another. A qualified nutritionist is another. A qualified relationship counsellor is another. So all of these things, they all pile up and add up to your knowledge base and make you, more confident about what it is that you want to do. And so I'll just end on that, is that Your Body Means Business, my program that I put together with the help of my daughter. We put together the modules in 2018, and the rest of our team now, the other coaches in YBNB. What we have created here is a complete wraparound service for you to do all the things that I've mentioned, and absolutely crucially, to then keep you accountable. And every time I see that someone is maybe dropping off, we up the accountability. And that is because we know that it is so difficult, because the human needs, the upper limit problem, the amygdala doing its work, all of these things, they make you, they take you off your path. And they go to your default. And what's the default? The default is sitting back, sitting on the sofa and thinking about why it's everybody else's fault. And that is really why I started this with saying, whose fault is it? It doesn't really matter. It won't help you thinking about the reasons things have got to where they are. It will help you to take the steps that I've said. And it won't just help you either. It will help all the people around you, because who wants to be around somebody who is constantly talking about what's wrong? What's wrong is always there if you look for it. But luckily, so is what's right. If you look for things that are right all around you, if you look for opportunities all around you, then they are there. This is free to you. And I hope you found it really useful. And I've put it here because I know that, that people do listen to this and they give me great feedback and it helps them. But also what I'd love you to do is to subscribe to my daily emails to get more of this every day. I tend to sort of have my thought for the day, send it out, and then I start sort of thinking about the live content and talking around it and bringing in guests off the back of that. And then you will find a lot more out about the program, Your Body Means Business. It's a 13-week program. We run it over a season, and there's so much in it, too much for me to tell you now, but basically online modules, coaching with me on Zoom, coaching with my team on Zoom, a part of a Facebook group where you get to know everybody else on the program, daily opportunities to work out live with me and my team, me teaching you how to weight train from scratch, meditation, yoga, business roundup, so live economy roundups. We had someone on this morning who was giving us a complete overview of all the main indexes, equity indexes, commodities, everything that's going on in the economy if you want to invest, and lots of different business ideas as well. So it's all there for you to take you from A to B. You will look radically different. You will feel radically different. You will be radically different. It will be a new, improved, you point two. So that's probably enough for me now. I've got to 12:30. Love talking to you as always. But don't dwell on whose fault anything is. Take responsibility and take your life to the next level. And I would love to help you with that. So thanks for listening, and bye-bye till Friday.